We have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity.
We know the air is unfit to breathe and our food is unfit to eat. As if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy.
Silence! The great and powerful Oz knows why you have come.
You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value.
You have meddled with the primal forces of nature.
Don't give yourselves to brutes. Men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, or what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men with machine minds and machine hearts.
Now, Reality Rants with Jason Bermas.
And who loves you? And who do you love?
It is Reality Rants with Jason Bermas. That went a lot smoother. Just took a couple minutes on the other end. Pumped to be here, even in a post-truth world. And that's what we live in. And that's why when we get just a smidgen, a little comeuppance of truth, I really appreciate it. You read this tweet and it makes no sense, and you kind of understand what I was saying, but sometimes I put out gibberish tweets. I only realize after the fact. That's why you should always check your tweets, just for grammar. Happy that, not only that. Come on now. And then when I said the second part didn't make any sense either. Basically, I want to say happy that not only did Whitney Webb get on the Glenn Beck show, but he also acknowledged that this is the most important interview he has ever done. And no, that's not a bot account. I got the love back on the Twitter from Glenn Beck. Now, at the same time, Twitter is a Trojan horse civilian system that I feel like we have to work within. And that's why I'm starting this off on Election Day, midterm madness, because so much gravitas has been given to what social media can do to elections. Now, don't get me wrong. Social media is a huge tool. But to act like they are the end-all, be-all of elections and swaying elections and election interference is a bunch of Johnny nonsense. It's horse manure. It's not real. That's not reality sauce. That's part of the great narrative. You understand? That's part of psychological warfare against the people to bring in their candidates of choice. That's not speculation either, folks. That's the reality. There used to be something they talked about. It was called the silent majority. They don't have to talk about the silent majority anymore because now they have to demonize the vocal majority. All right, and then marginalize them from reality in this post-truth world. So when I see something like Whitney Webb just laying it down, not pulling any punches on Beck's show. And look, an hour-long format for the type of stuff that you're talking about, ranging from Epstein to globalism to sustainability to transhumanism, is not easy to do in an hour, especially when you're actually educated on the subject. That's why there have been broadcasts with myself and Whitney that go 90 minutes, and we don't really scratch the surface of all those things. These are complex issues. They take time to understand. You need to read up on them. But not only do we live in a post-truth world, we live in a world of quote-unquote pre-bunking, part of that post-truth world. We talked about this a little bit with John Fitch yesterday on Mixed Martial Mindset. All right, if you didn't see Mixed Martial Mindset, I would encourage people to check it out because this is already part of the great narrative. Today's the day. We're gonna go over all this with Todd McGreevy in about 23 minutes. At the end of the first hour, he's going to join me over for the premium end of the broadcast, only at Red Voice Media. RedVoiceMedia.com/Jason to sign up for the first week for $1. That's $10 a month. We're here 4 days a week. Great way to support the broadcast. Pre-bunking. Now, they're already talking about the LA election preview. This was just a few days ago. And what do we have here? False information is everywhere. Pre-bunking tries to head it off early. And they want to inoculate you. I mean, they're not even shy about saying, hey, this is really about brainwashing. But if you're not on our side, we're going to demonize you. We're going to gaslight you. We're going to make things difficult for you. We're going to criminalize your speech and thoughts and punish you via our digital economic system. That's where this is at. So I got quite a few stories I want to go over, quite a few videos, including Bill Clinton. You want to talk about a post-truth world. Old Billy boy. See, this is what I'm talking about. And this is another reason, you've got to use Twitter as a tool. Now, before I play this awesome video, this is what people should be doing all the time. This is in the model of We Are Change that I constantly talk about. I had a picture pulled up that made me smile so hard yesterday. I wonder if I still have it pulled up. I probably don't. No, it doesn't look like I... Yes, I do. Yes, I do. So happy. I'm so happy I have this picture. So that's my boy Luke Radowski. For those that are watching the video and not just listening on Podbean. And by the way, whole show's on Podbean. So if you're not a premium member, you can come over and listen to Todd and I over there as well. That's Eric Schmidt. Okay, Eric Schmidt. Let's see what we got over here. Let's grab it. He is the author of The New Digital Age, Reshaping the Future of People, Nations, and Businesses with his buddy Jared Cohen, CFR. And this laid out all the censorship. This laid out why WikiLeaks was the enemy. 2013, almost a decade old now. They were probably writing this a decade ago. And what you're seeing here, as opposed to what like the mainstream media wants to, again, mainstream media, military industrial complex, wants to put out as a meme about people like myself or Luke, is that we're unhappy people or that we're dangerous people. Look how happy Luke is. You know why? Because he's confronting a high-level predator-class billionaire and representative of Google at their coup de grace meeting, their annual, at Bilderberg, where he's a steering committee member. All right? And when you see the little smirky, it's got a little smirky. He's smirky town, right? And I'm not talking about Luke. Luke's actually happy doing his job. And when I see this is the way, this is the journalism. Why are you dunking on all these poor people that are just succumbing to the brainwashing that this guy's facilitating, that aren't happy in life, that are gulping down SSRIs like they're Tic Tacs? It's not hard to dunk on them. A lot of them are mentally deranged. And that's not just Democrats. I'm talking about mainline politicians in general. Why aren't you going after both sides of the fence and asking these people real questions and putting them on the spot via their criminality? How about that? In fact, let me check. That might have been 2018 when Luke did this one. Let's see. It could have been 2019 too. But I think that could be 2018. If it is, let's see is that the post-truth world meeting? Where was it? Let's see. Thursday through Sunday. Airbus. Is that the one in Sweden? See, we do it live here. So I think that this is maybe the one. So, Luke was there when they're discussing a post-truth world. He's the man. Now we have this video here of Bill Clinton finally, I mean, Bill Clinton's been accessible to the media, everybody. Let's not get that twisted, okay? Finally being asked about his relationship to Jeffrey Epstein, and let's see what his little smirkles looks like.
And he called comments on the alleged allegation of your connection with Jeffrey Epstein?
Whoa, buddy! Your alleged connection to Jeffrey. Whoa, you see that look? Ho! Why? This is it. We've all got high definition magic boxes. And look, you can actually not only do that, like tape it and then upload it, you can do it live. You, not me. I can do it too, but you can do it. Everybody has access to this. That wasn't the way when WRC, We Are Change, started back in like 2007, I think, maybe even 2006. You might, by the 5th anniversary, absolutely, Luke was rocking it. So by 2006, probably like 2005 that he started that thing. So let's watch it again. This is what citizens, and we're not threatening, we're asking a real question that if we had any semblance of an actual media, and what's awesome about what Whitney Webb did on Glenn Beck is she talked heavily about Epstein's connection to Clinton in regards to fundraising for these people, helping them with their little institutions, their little tax-free funds. Basically, these tax-free funds, these charitable organizations, whatever you want to call them, these NGOs, are a way to empower these people tax-free. And really, I mean, you look what they did to Bannon, right? I don't carry water for Bannon, but it's a joke. It's a joke compared to what these people do with those funds and how they make money off of them and how they control people with them and control narratives with them and are part of the great narrative. So once again, look at Clinton's face when he realizes the question he just got asked on camera. He's like, you little son of a bitch. And again, Whitney Webb did a great job on Beck talking about this.
Any comments on the alleged allegation of your connection with Jeffrey Epstein?
He goes, I think the evidence is, and then it kind of trails off. He says, I think the answer is clear. I mean, you look at that dude. Look at the dude behind him. As he realizes, too, what he gets asked. This guy right here. See this guy? He's got his eyeballs on this guy now. Oh, you want to ask a real question? Let's watch it one more time. I wish we could slow it down. This is like the play-by-play. See, this is why you watch it on video, too. It's not just the audio. You want to see the reactions of these people. And then let's blow it up. Let's zoom in here. All right? Here it comes one more time.
Any comments on the alleged allegation of your connection with Jeffrey Epstein?
He goes, no! He answers for Clinton right there. Oh, man. Slowing this at one more news. Let's give this guy a shout out. Look at this. This is gold. This is gold wrapped in platinum, melted in diamond encrusted rubies and emeralds. That's what this is. Look at Clinton's face. Right away, this guy already said no to him. He hasn't even reacted yet because he can't believe one of the peasants just asked him this question. See, I think he says evidence. And look at that, man. He's got his eyeballs on him. He's like, hey, Junior. No. That's not what we do here. Whoo! I might have to play that one again when Todd comes on the broadcast in about 14 minutes. So to show people how the post-truth world really works, we're going to go back in time, back in action, to show you how the models have evolved over the years. All right? And a lot of this is telling you, it's naming names, and a lot of the same tools are being utilized now. But I would say when you talk about actual fact-checking in journalism, the standards have gotten even lower than what's going to be discussed here. In 1983, with a member of the CIA explaining what real disinformation is, What real misinformation is, how they manipulate the press, naming names and organizations. So they name names and methods in this. This is 40 years old. This is when Jason Bermas was a tyke of 3, still wearing little overalls, right? Not comprehending what's going on in the world. We're in the early stages of Reagan. I'm just starting to get to know everything around me. Realize I got a little baby brother. Okay, this is 40 years ago. So let's play this clip. I think it's an important one.
You briefed the press, did you not, when you were there?
Well, I had several jobs. One of my jobs was that of analyst. I also was an interrogator and indeed briefed the press when we, the CIA, wanted to circulate disinformation on a particular issue. Disinformation is not necessarily a lie. It may be a half-truth. And we would pick out a journalist. I would go do the briefing and hope that he would put the information in print. For instance, if we wanted to get across to the American public that the North Vietnamese were building up their force structure in South Vietnam, I would go to a journalist and advise him that in the past 6 months, X number of North Vietnamese forces had come down the Ho Chi Minh Trail system through southern Laos. Now, there is no way a journalist can check that information. So either he goes with the information or he doesn't, and ordinarily or usually,
look at Smirk,
the journalist would go with it because it looked like some kind of exclusive.
So let's bring it back. So you butter these people up, you play into their ego, you act all nice, you give them some good information, and now watch how he smiles as he tells them they'd usually take the bait. They'd usually print the story, okay? It's important, watch.
X number of North Vietnamese forces had come down the Ho Chi Minh Trail system through southern Laos. Now, there is no way a journalist can check that information. So either he goes with the information or he doesn't, and ordinarily or usually, the journalist would go with it because it looked like some kind of exclusive. And I would say our percentage planning that kind of data was 70 to 80%. The correspondents we targeted were those who had terrific influence, the most respected journalists in Saigon, like Robert Chaplin of the New Yorker magazine, Kai's Beach of the Los Angeles Times from time to time, and also he worked for the Chicago Daily News. Bud Merrick of U.S. News and World Report, Malcolm Brown of the New York Times.
I mean, they're just naming them off. New Yorker, New York Times, Chicago Daily Tribune. I mean, again and again and again. These are like the top tier guys, especially at the time. This is 83. And look, just like we had them all.
Even Maynard Parker of Newsweek magazine. We would go after these gentlemen. I would be directed to cultivate them, to spend time with them at the Caravel Hotel or the Continental Hotel, to socialize with them, and slowly but surely to try to gain their confidence by dolloping out valid information which was true. And then I would drop into a conversation the data that we wanted to get across, which might not be true.
Oh, no, it might not be true. I mean, even as an ex-CIA guy, he's really careful here. Oh, it could have been partial truths. We'll give them all this good information, then we'll just dollop in a little of the disinfo. Great.
One piece of data, for instance, that we managed to plan in the New Yorker magazine had to do with a supposed North Vietnamese effort in 1973 to develop airfields along the border of South Vietnam. The reason we wanted to plant this information was that we were trying to persuade the U.S. Congress that Saigon should continue to get a great deal of aid, and that the North Vietnamese were the chief violators of the ceasefire accord.
So in other words, let's influence the elected officials with misinformation, disinformation talking points to fleece taxpayers on behalf of death showers and the military-industrial complex. This is the Central Intelligence Agency 40 years ago. Do you think they got better? Do you think they've gotten to be better people? Or do you think they've consolidated power furthered their agenda, and expanded on their networks to the point now that this intelligence apparatus via the CIA or the NSA or the underground continuity of government program has expanded via Patriot Act, Homeland Security, fusion centers, and now signature reduction? That's the reality, that there's a whole lot more of these guys. Total sociopaths in most cases. This guy, he had a come to sanity moment. Let's continue here.
That was printed in the New Yorker magazine under the byline of Robert Chaplin, as indeed was a great deal of such information which we tried to circulate. If I planted a piece of information with a reporter, I would ordinarily then try to create an environment in which he could not check the information. I would go to the British ambassador and brief him on the disinformation I had just given the reporter. So when the reporter wanted to cross-check what I'd told him with, say, the British ambassador, New Zealand ambassador, or what have you, he would get false confirmation, the same message coming back at him, and he'd say, aha, I've got proof that Frank Snepp told me the truth, when in fact, what he'd gotten was simply an echo of what I'd given him in the first place.
So now it's gotten even more sophisticated. The echo chambers are everywhere. They're within the halls of government and security and mainstream media. But then back to that social media we talked about. And by the way, folks, here's the deal. You know, I think my Elon Musk video from yesterday, the first hour, it's got like 4,000 views on YouTube. That's great. We need that. There it is right there, 3.7K. Let's take a look. Great, great. On all the alternative platforms, like just some of them, I guess, you look at, for instance, the Rumble. We got more on Rumble on this feed. The RVM feed has even more. We put it over on BitChute. We're back on BitChute, and we're on Band Video. On Band Video alone, it's got almost 3,000 views. Okay, so in many ways we're breaking out. You know, Twitter I haven't checked. All the documentary films free, by the way. But at the same time, you know, you have to go to the alternatives, but the echo chambers exist within the system on purpose. And even the alternative platforms are rife with purposeful disinformation to discredit the real stuff. We talked about the QAnon sense. That was an operation. But then another high-level operation would be the blue nonsense. The walls are closing in. Russia, Russia, Russia. And that gets more play from the establishment, and they act like that is the authoritative source. In reality, that's all disinformation. But then they'll sprinkle a bunch of white hats are coming to save you, and that Robert Mueller's a good guy, and they've got John McCain at Guantanamo nonsense, so that you don't look into the Franklin scandal. Okay? And you don't look into the Finders. And you don't look into Dennis Hassert and his buddies. And you don't look into the Epstein network. That's why. Let's let this guy finish up. Todd McGreevy should be joining us in about 3-4 minutes.
Via the British ambassador or other of our friendly diplomatic contacts. I am, as an ex-CIA agent, opposed to the disinformation activities in which I was involved. I admit that I was involved, and I think it served no useful purpose. Propagandizing the American public or Congress is not the CIA's job.
Oh, but it is what they do. Make no mistake about it. Make no mistake about it. So, before he gets here, I'm going to give him a warm welcome. rcreader.com. River City's Reader. We're going to be discussing the election today, but I want to point out, yesterday we read the entire op-ed piece that I had done via Elon Musk. Well, I would also encourage you to read a piece I did on September 11th on that issue. All right. Top 5 domestic tyranny steps enacted by the U.S. governments after September 11th, 2001. And this is a meaty article, just like the other one is a meaty article. By the way, there's the cover we actually showed you yesterday, and then there's the cover of this one. And it explains to you step by step how that guy and his buddies expanded their power, at least at the top levels. That's how it works. And I don't like it. There's no accountability there. Like, even that guy, how many crimes did he commit? How many lives did he cost on behalf of a U.S. interest? And when we say U.S. interests, are they the interests of the common person like you and I that are succumbing to inflation, having our standard of living decimated under what is now the new religion, by the way? Clay Clark on. You'll see that interview on Thursday. And there's Todd right there. And right before we get to Todd is
a U.S. interest.
Can you turn that off, Todd? So I'm not in the background there?
Yep.
All right, there we go right there. Before we get to Todd, yes, this is actually their new religion. And in Mount Sinai for CDP 27, there is a prophetic call for climate justice and a ceremony of repentance. You cannot make this up. I know it's election day, but I had to throw that in there so I don't forget it. Maybe we'll talk about that on the end of the premium side of the broadcast. But his name is Todd McGreevy. He is the editor-in-chief of the River City Reader. There's a lot in there. The cover story is on Musk. We went over that thoroughly yesterday. Mr. McGreevy, how are you, sir?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm well. How do I sound? Okay?
Yeah, you sound actually great. You sound absolutely phenomenal. We're very happy to have you. For those that do not know, tell people briefly how you got into independent journalism. And remember, we are on YouTube, number one, just before we get going for this first half hour. And then let's get into the importance of the midterms, whether you're seeing any anomalies out there, what you think the narratives that have been put out by the media are, and their importance as well. Take it away, Todd.
Absolutely. But before I go into that clip you just played about the guy saying how he dealt with disinformation and misinformation and planted stories with the journalists. Who was that?
That's an ex-CIA officer. So the clip itself, Todd, I'm on the social media. I'm on the Twitter. It's one of my main feeds. It's one of the really empowering tools of that. I've always said it. Aside from like other social media, I don't like Instagram. I don't need to post my breakfast every day. I'm a great cook. You don't need to see my steak. I eat it. I love it. We don't need to share. That's a waste of my time. Right. Facebook. These are a lot of those people are the people you actually know that you grew up with. There's a lot of baby mama drama on there. People on the third wives. They're getting their kids taken away. I hate seeing those posts. Or there's the other super positive posting every meme guy. It sucks. Twitter. You follow somebody, they have a short set of characters, there's usually a link, it's usually to a news source, there's not a lot of baby mama drama, they don't have to follow you necessarily. Great feed. So I follow Edward Snowden. Okay. And Snowden posted that yesterday. Got it. So when I saw that from Snowden, I thought it was extremely interesting. I thought it was extremely candid. And the fact that actual journalists were named in what you could call an Operation Mockingbird-like program, not only the outlets, but the specific journalists themselves, I think is massive. And I think a lot of people should see that clip and understand that that program never went anywhere. It expanded. What network did the interview? And how long ago? That was a BBC interview. BBC? Yeah. Recently, or is that like an archive? That's 1983. 83. Oh, my goodness. 40 years ago. You missed the intro when I was talking about I was a wee babe of just realizing that the world was real. Okay. Wow. Yeah, I was multitasking while getting ready to this, but that's amazing. And yeah, thanks for having me on, Jason. The River City's Reader is an independent newspaper owned and published by my wife, Kathleen McCarthy, and I. We started it in 1993 here in the Quad Cities. We're in Bettendorf, Davenport, Iowa, Rock Island, Moline, East Moline, Illinois. We publish it monthly in print, and we're in issue number 1003 right now. The November issue that's on the stands is with Jason's piece on the cover, 5 Reasons Why Elon Musk Should Not Be Trusted. We were weekly for 13 years before the Facebooks and the Googles crushed independent media revenue streams, and we've pivoted to biweekly for a long time. Now we're monthly. How I got into it, started a music and arts rag called the Slowfish, the Quad Cities underwater rag, we called it, underwater newspaper, and met Kathleen at that time
and she started writing guest columns for us about outcome-based education during the Daddy Bush era, and kind of raised the bar, if you will, on the discussion. And from there, we learned the hard way about how to do independent news and journalism, and been doing it for 30 years. So really excited to have you on the cover, Jason. It's a great piece. You kept it succinct. I love people like lists. I think it's a good way to get people engaged. Like, oh, 5 things I can absorb here. You know, it's a good way to get people engaged. And it's ironic. Here we are. Twitter's a platform that you leverage and you use often. At the same time, you're critiquing it and saying, don't trust this guy. You know, I mean, if you go to the website and you see the graphic that I think you used on some of your slides I provided you, that with the satellites around the brain,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and you got the Trojan horse facing the satellites around the brain. I mean, fast forward. I mean, there is a clip of Elon at an event with his investor, talking to the investors very recently. And he talks about his vision for what he's going to do and so forth. And I think we should be prepared to see that. I mean, he envisions this as a platform for transactions. You know, he wants to create a new PayPal. He misses the days of PayPal. So what I envision, and others have said, is eventually this will be a platform that it's the whole package. You know, you're going to have your banking on this platform. You're going to have, and so subsequently, you should trust him, because if you decide to be a protester like the truckers in Canada, he's not going to shut off your bank account. It's Elon. He's pro freedom. You know, he's not going to turn anything off. No problem. You know, what was the quote you said yesterday about the interview with
Glenn Beck? And Glenn, did
Yeah.
you see? If you were just tuning in, Glenn actually liked the tweet of me talking about how it's important that Whitney Webb had him on there. So, hey, Glenn, I'm glad you're coming around, bro. We really are happy. But the quote was basically, all right, I let you put all this nanotechnology in me.
Right.
I say something you and your buddies don't like. Right. What's to say you don't just shut me off?
Well, we would never do that.
We would never do that.
It was Kurzweil's response, right? According to Beck. Anyway, so that explains the whole, the whole Trojan. I mean, what can be more Trojan horse than letting you put a chip in my brain and tie it to all of my, resources? I mean, it's just, it boggles the mind. And if you go to the website too, Jason, I recently updated. The print edition's been on the street since Thursday. We have a slow drip, if you will. We leave the print out there, and then we start putting the articles up online. And there's a piece on there by Kevin Gostola. Are you familiar with him, with Dissident Press? I think you need to hit refresh up there. You get to the slides there, and that's the lead. Then go to the second slide there. It'll just scroll. There you go. Sorry, third one. That's the election one, which we're going to talk about. There's a piece by Caitlin Johnstone. Are you familiar with her?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, she pulls no punches, and that's an illustration by Ed and Monica Newman too on there. That there's the piece by Gostola right there about Chelsea Manning. What is the guy? I always forget the guy's name that took over Jon Stewart's Daily Show.
Trevor Noah.
No, Trevor Noah. There's an interview with Chelsea Manning. Have you seen that by chance recently?
I have not.
It's actually a very good interview, and I'm not a fan of Trevor Noah. I think he's sanctimonious, whatever. He's just, I don't like him, but he does a really good job of interviewing Chelsea Manning. And but the chilling thing about this interview is Chelsea's got a book out, all right, and it's been heavily redacted, and that's what that article is about, how redacted it is, and so forth. Because once you work for the government, Jason, I don't know if you knew this or not, and you want to publish something, you signed away your rights to publish. They have the right to,
redact everything. They have censors that go through it, and sometimes in the past there have been published books, this is long before the days of the internet, where something got publicized by other media outlets in books, and then they had to be basically retroactively redacted in subsequent publications. That's how wild it is. People don't realize. See, that's the importance of free speech, folks. These guys would literally go into hard copies and hope that the next edition of a popular book that said uncomfortable truths didn't have said uncomfortable truth in it for the masses. And you hope that the media cycle that initially covered it is forgotten. Right. They hope you don't have a memory. And because we've gone from long form reading novels to long form watching movies that were 2 to 3 hours long, sagas, if you will, to then watching movies that were 90 minutes long, and now watching TikToks that are literally 90 seconds, a lot of people's brains, they don't have the attention span that they once did.
No.
This is purposeful. This is psychological warfare and really biological warfare on a mass level to promote a great narrative, Todd.
Oh yeah. And the chilling part, I mean, they're discussing the book with Trevor Noah, and Chelsea Manning's explaining her plight and how everything went down, and it's very engaging. Not once during this 15-minute engaging interview did either one of them bring up Julian Assange. His name is not even mentioned, and I think that's really chilling and very telling.
I agree.
Manning is being groomed to, this is when you're on the Trevor Noah show and you get a really, a great platform to highlight yourself. And I mean, it's really, positive, it's like, oh, wow. Yeah. We tortured you before, we put you in isolation confinement and tortured you for a while, but now you're out and you're fine. Here's your book. Let's get you on the shows.
Well, also Manning has tried for a political career, and I don't think that's over with, and basically tried to be integrated into the system. I'm not a fan of that. I think that's a big issue. And let's be honest, there's just a multitude of people that haven't mentioned Julian Assange's name that have been raised up to quote-unquote hero status. Donald Trump being one of them, in my opinion. Listen, he didn't pardon him at the end. He was petty during the presidency after sending Rohrabacher there. And no matter what Greenwald or whoever publishes about the second impeachment or the JFK documents, etc., on, basically you can't do these or we're going to come after you, you can't let Assange go, that's ridiculous. That's not an excuse. And this has spanned across a multitude of administrations, from the Barack Obama, and really started obviously at the tail end of the Bush administration when they started seeing these leaks, and you had the infrastructure built via what you allowed me to publish in the September 11th episode or edition of your thing. You had the fusion centers, you had Homeland Security, you had the Patriot Act as a tool, and we've seen where that goes. And now you literally have a system where somebody who prints real whistleblower documentation that has never been refuted is being brought in on the Espionage Act for exposing high-level crimes across a multitude of the techno-fascist globalist state, whether it be government organizations or those private businesses and cartels that openly work with them, Todd.
Well, and at the beginning of the WikiLeaks era, the legacy media, the Washington Post, New York Times, gratuitously, published a lot of this stuff and gave themselves awards for journalism. And now they've just discarded them. They forgot about where they came. Yeah, click on that and check out that cartoon that Ed Newman did. He showed his. Go back to there you go. Click on the headline there. There's the cartoon. Fee fi fo fum, I smell the blood of an Englishman. That shows Uncle Sam with a noose with an extradition order in his hand inside the Belmarsh prison yard. And you have Julian Assange sitting on the prison yard with a ball and chain saying, I'm Australian, and whatever.
But you know what? Number one, there's a large percentage of the 30 and under crowd, I would say, maybe even 40, who has no idea who Julian Assange even is. And forget about it. There are some that might have heard the name or WikiLeaks. They have no idea he's an Australian citizen. A lot of people that casually watch the news while sipping a $7 latte, at some trendy hip place, think that he's like a Russian agent because of the blue nonsense. Again, all of these are psychological operations. That's the one the media pushes, the authoritative sources. Julian Assange is a Putin puppet. All of this is Russian hacking, GRU. It's absolute nonsense. It's been disproven time and time again. In the Mueller report, they tried to say that the Seth Rich conspiracy theories were promoted by Assange in an attempt to distance himself from the Russian collusion. It's absurd, Todd.
It is. And Caitlin Johnstone, her piece, she talks about how, and of course, she's, in my view, has standing to write about this. She's an Australian as well. And she's, really a good writer, but she talks about how the the U.S. empire is a sly manipulator, smiling and posturing as a good guy by contrasting itself with overt monsters. And she talks about how, used to have a brutal, tyrannical brute was the former element that independent journalists fought against. And what Julian did was he spotlighted the U.S. empire as a manipulative bitch, and that's her term. And she goes into that and talks about how manipulative the U.S. is, and it brings in the CIA, just like you brought that clip up from the 1983. That still blows my mind that's been out there that long, and hear people walk around and act like what they get on the news is reality, and it is we are lied to from the moment we wake up. It's just incredible. I'm jumping around here, Jason. Yesterday, I'm listening to NPR, and we got to do our NPR segment sometime. I'm going to tee one up for you.
We're going to talk like this, Todd, very calmly to one another, and act like we know everything. I don't know if you can do that segment.
Yeah. Oh, I'm talking about is deconstruction NPR. But what they did was they were talking about a new shipment went to the International Space Station. Did you hear this recently?
Yeah, no, I've been watching. Are you talking about out of Kazakhstan?
I don't know where it came from or where it originated, but what the cargo, the payload included bovine ovaries to do some experimentation in space about gestating cows. But it also included a 3D printer that can print human flesh.
Yeah.
Did you hear about that?
No, yeah. I've been covering the bio.
I thought of you when I heard
now.
that. I'm like, oh my God.
I would imagine if it was going to the ISS and it was a manned mission, which it sounds like maybe it was just a payload mission, but I know those are going out of Kazakhstan, because that's really the weird behind the scenes stuff. While we're at war with Russia, they're launching rockets with U.S. and European astronauts. That doesn't make any sense. But exactly, there's a lot going on over at NASA. There's a lot going on in biomimetics, xenotransplantation, not only the printing of food, but like you said, biomaterial, human genetic material in space. And I would imagine one of the reasons that they're doing that is one of the things I've been covering is all of a sudden, Todd, we're realizing that if we leave human beings in space for just days, they seem to have alterations and mutations in their blood that may or may not cause cancer down the line. So, we're just realizing it. That's been around for a while. Want to shift gears. We only got 15 minutes left in the free segment. Then you're going to have to come over to Red Voice Media or over to Podbean, where you can listen to it for free, everybody. By the way, we're over on YouTube. We barely have 100 likes. We got 268 watching. Can we get 150, 200? Can we get this stuff out here, guys? The great narrative, Todd. Hold on. I want to go through these. Just these headlines really quickly. Now, this is all stuff starting yesterday afternoon, not even 24 hours ago, that was being published by the media as the early voting was starting. Republicans are already suing to get midterm ballots thrown out in key states. Next headline, Allegheny County warns over 1,000 mail-in ballots at risk of not being counted. Next headline, ACLU sues Georgia County over 1,000 unsent absentee ballots. Those are the mail-in ballots. They're not the absentee ballots. Lawsuit seeks to block counting of military ballots in Wisconsin. Let's see. Hold on right here. Fact check. Biden encouraged Americans to be patient as ballots are counted in 2020 midterms. They refused to play. The video in the background doesn't show him saying that it may take days to count the votes. I don't know if you've seen that quote.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely real. This is the fact check. So these are all things put out in the last 2 days with the great narrative. And yesterday, number of wrong ballots cast in Nashville, now more than 430. They initially said it was 10. Who knows where it is right now? Philly Mag saying basically if you did a mail-in ballot, there's a list. You may not actually be counted. We need you down there. We need you to vote for Fetterman, NPR that you love so much. Texas officials say they're rejecting fewer mail-in ballots than in primaries. Big spike. False information is everywhere. Pre-bunking tries to head it off early. So already election disasters and all the narratives that were being promoted by every mainstream outlet out there yesterday. The pre-bunking on the false information, the new red mirage meme that's out there, and a poopy pants puppet that's obviously not running anything in this great narrative telling you it might take days in key elections to find out who won. Thoughts, Mr. McGreevy?
Well, it's kind of like the hate and lie shot. It's safe and effective. The election, but we thought it was secure, safe and secure election, right? That's what we were told. It was the safest, securest election ever last time. So why all of a sudden is it so at risk this time? Maybe because the results might turn out differently.
Well, did you see that Politico actually acknowledged that the machines are able to be hacked and unsecure as of yesterday? Have you seen? Maybe we should do that live and pull it up.
Yeah, I did not see that yet. No.
Let's see it. We'll do it live. So we'll type in Politico, because Politico. There's the authoritative source of authoritative sources. Politico. Let's see. Voting machines. Secure. Just those ones. Okay, here we go. You're gonna love it. They use numbers, folks. 6 election security threats to watch for on election day.
You like lists.
Hacking threats and disinformation fears loom large as voters head to the polls. Now, what this is, again, is them shifting the narrative, and they're taking real things. Okay, just like that CIA agent said. There is no security in election machines, period, whether they have a wireless connection to the internet or a hardline connection to the internet. I would argue if they have a USB port on them, that's a big problem. And the vast majority, if not all of them, do. So they point out real things in this article, but then there it is at the apex, mis and disinformation. This, to me, Todd, is really the inversion of reality. And remember, you couldn't talk about any of these things during 2020. How dare you if you did? You, sir, are an election denier. Yeah.
And now it's they're setting the stage for nonsense, Johnny nonsense, as you call it. They're setting it. So what we did at the Reader last month in October, we published on our front page and throughout the pages a questionnaire and answers from candidates. We did not get every candidate didn't answer them, but we solicited all the candidates that are on the ballot in the 2 major counties here, Rock Island County, Illinois, and Scott County, Iowa, everything from the governor all the way down to your auditor or treasurer at the county level. And we asked them questions. And these questions included, started with number 1, emergency declarations in COVID-19. Do you agree that the state governor has the authority to implement policies that ignore or violate individual protected rights enumerated in the U.S. and state constitutions when he or she declares a statewide emergency? If yes, please cite the specific published law or statutes where such an authority to ignore or violate rights is provided. Now, you can imagine most people didn't even want to touch that with the 10-foot pole. I will say that Patrick Moody, who's running for county sheriff in Rock Island County, did actually answer the question. And as we've talked before, I think the sheriff election is probably the most important election in your county. If you have an election that's happening in your county where the sheriff's being elected, you should know who your sheriff could be, and you should pay attention to these type of questions. We ask, and by the way, we did not put specifically in this questionnaire and these responses, Jason, we did not put their party affiliation anywhere in here. We want them to be known for the character of their content, if you will. So then what lessons did you learn during the pandemic that will inform how you will conduct the office and serve your constituents should another pandemic be declared in the future? We asked that question. We get into oaths and office and protecting rights. We talk about, we actually publish their oath of office. We assert that that's really the only contract we have with these people is that oath of office, and ask some questions about how they will support that oath of office. We get into a question about ESG that we asked the state treasurers. And let me find that real quick here.
It's the sustainability movement for those that don't understand. And by the way, this article that we let in when Todd was getting here, this is by the Interfaith Center for Sustainable Development. And you can't make this up. I had Clay Clark on last night in a pre-record. Everybody's going to be able to see that Thursday. And they're literally trying to bring back the Gaia religion, the one in which human beings are absolutely terrible. And we need to not only track, trace, and database everything that we do, but regiment our very biology in this great reset, great narrative agenda, which is really 4th Industrial Revolution slavery, Todd.
Oh yeah. The sustainable. I mean, many of us were on top of this years ago at the county level when the sustainability efforts were infiltrated. It's the what's the ICLEI, International something remember ICLEI? I'll think of it in a second here, but it's an oxymoron. It's it's effectively a think tank that gets rules into legislation at the local level. It's Agenda 21 is what it is. It's Agenda 21. And so our own county supervisors, this goes back years, Jason, this is going the way back machine, but people like Jesse Anderson and Michael Elliott, and Michael Angelos and Diane Holst, and a bunch of us would go to these county meetings and confront these people with, hey, wait a second, you guys are trying to implement building codes on us in this county. And have you read the building codes? Because and Jesse pointed to these county supervisors up on the dais and said, your house would not qualify because you have too big of a garage. Your house won't qualify because you have too many acres per the square foot that you have for your house. And your house won't, and they cut them off and said, you cannot disparage us up here. You do not get to say these things, Wait a second. You guys are voting on some freaking building codes that your own house can't even sustain. So what are you doing? So it happens. You have to get involved locally. That's what we've been preaching for a long time. And part of that, back to the sustainability, is the ESG scores. We asked the question in the issue, and it's on at our website, rcreader.com. It's the lead slide if you go there and you want to read these questions. And I share this with people because we would hope that, as you pointed out, Jason, journalists would actually ask some decent questions. It's not that difficult to ask a decent question, and this includes, I don't know if you know the story about West Virginia, but there were 6 banks that were managing the public pension funds in West Virginia, and they included BlackRock and many others. And they decided across the board that they were not going to invest those pension funds in any oil or gas stocks, any oil or gas businesses, any oil or gas private equity funds, or anything like that. They're going to, and here they are, the pension funds of a state that really makes its living off of coal, West Virginia, coal and gas. Yet they took those same pension funds and invested them in Chinese coal plants. This has been well documented. I'm not making this up. There's links to it at our question. And the West Virginia legislature, the treasurer, and the governor got together and said, hey, we're canceling all these banking contracts with these people. It's beyond managing pensions. There's big banking for payroll, and government's huge. They deal with banks all the time. And 6 of them, one of the 6, U.S. Bank, said, hey, we're going to pause. We're going to change our policy. We're not going to do what these other people are doing. And they changed how you can affect the power of the purse. You can impact these people trying to have a top-down authoritarian management of our lives. And
well, so that is ESG in a nutshell. For those that don't understand what ESG is, energy sustainability government, which is a command and control system where they take this NGO sustainability movement and they do it with a public-private partnership. So you have the government promoting what they called their Inflation Reduction Act, which was a repackaged Green New Deal. And then you have everybody just bend the knee and sign onto it through corporate lawfare. People don't understand that. So if you think the squeeze was on during COVID-19 84 for certain things, I don't want to get, we got 5 minutes before the premium broadcast where we could speak freely. Please come over redvoicemedia.com/Jason or listen to it over on Podbean, where you can also call in. They're really going to put the squeeze on you if you want to keep that 6-figure job and that pension and the health insurance for your family in the next 5 years. If you work for one of these large authoritarian top-down companies, which are consolidating power on a massive level, and we already had the largest wealth transfer in this country's history and the largest shutdown of small business in a consolidated time period in history over the last 3 years, Todd. So ESG is that ultimate system of, forget about fact checks from the World Health Organization, top-down authority from the mouthpiece of the United Nations on what you can and can't do and how you can and can't live. And if you don't like it, well, the government might not be able to come after you, but these ESG sign-ons, all these companies, they will.
Yeah, it could trickle down to, we're managing all this funds for infrastructure that are, for instance, you're a big company and you need to get a supply. Let's pick paper towels or whatever you need, oil filters or, rock salt, whatever it might be you need to run your business. But, hey, you can't buy it from that vendor anymore because that vendor doesn't sign on to the ESG. Or I can't sell it to you and you can't buy it from me anymore because I'm not signed on to the ESG and you're the customer. And you say, you don't have the ESG program. So subsequently we can't buy from you anymore. We're going to buy from these people who sign on to ESG, which is it's a fiat system of giving you a score based on your wokeness, effectively.
Well, I would say it's even beyond that. Forget about what your politics are behind the scenes or what you post on social media. That's all going to be affected. But also think to yourself, with programmable tokens, what you're going to be able to spend your money on in the future, and where you're actually going to be able to travel if they institute these carbon credit scores, whether you're going to be able to use your gas-powered vehicle in certain counties or states or highways. This is total enslavement. Have you seen the Whitney Webb Glenn Beck interview yet?
I did. We watched it. It was excellent. It was superb. She's an assassin.
I mean, for all those things she got in an hour, from Epstein to ESG to transhumanism, it was absolutely phenomenal. She had precision like no other. And they talked extensively about Clinton and Epstein. Did you see the clip of Clinton I played earlier?
Yes, I did. And his handler did lean in and go, no.
Yeah. I had to watch it a few times. You saw the eyes, you know. Yeah. And I mean, Clinton kind of rambles. He almost has a Biden moment.
He said the evidence is in, is what I think he said. The word was in at the very end.
Yeah. I think you're right, too. I don't think the guy who quoted it was right. But I mean, the look on his face when he realizes what he had just been asked, which is something that journalists should have been asking him long before Epstein was arrested, right? Yeah, this should have been a question that was asked literally at least a decade ago. Okay, and at least a decade ago.
And the journalist was appropriately stating alleged, so that's fair. It's fair. He's alleged. Well, you can allege all you want here. I think the evidence is in, and that could work both ways. Yeah, I guess you were a frequent flyer at the island, weren't you, Billy?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it works both ways.
All right, so here's the deal. We're at the end of this hour. I want you to thumbs it up if you're over on YouTube. Here's how we do it, guys. If you're watching on Rumble, if you're watching on Rockfin, if you're watching on Twitter, Red Voice Media, redvoicemedia.com/Jason. That's where you're going to be able to find Todd and I uncensored. Look how big Todd is compared to me. I'm tiny. Come over. We're going to talk more about this election cycle, what we can expect in the next 24 hours, whether there's going to be a red wave, whether that actually matters, what the polling is going to look like as compared to the actual results, and much more. This is me saying sayonara, one platform at a time as we launch into the uncensored part of the broadcast. We'll be back tomorrow morning with Ian Crossland of the Timcast podcast. Not going to want to miss that. And then Thursday with Clay Clark. So let's do them one at a time.